All right, if you're here, you have not been able to prevent your dog from running trash. You've got a trashy dog. The good news is we're going to fix that. To fix that, we have to know what running trash really is. And at its core, y'all, it's defiance. It is a dog that has been properly walked through the process of squirrel hunting, okay? It's been introduced to a squirrel. It's been given a chance to have success on squirrels. It's developed confidence hunting squirrels. It knows it's a squirrel dog. Same token, it's also been introduced to trash, and it understands that it's running trash. It knows what it's chasing is off limits. The big divider here is it's choosing to run what it wants instead of what you have already made sure it has a firm understanding of what it's supposed to be running. Huge difference between a dog deciding to not chase what it knows it's supposed to chase and defy you than a dog that's been allowed to run around, kind of hunt whatever, and it just so happens to be running something you don't want it to run. If we correct a dog in that stage, we could ruin our dog. We don't want to give a dog correction for something it doesn't understand it's doing wrong. Any correction you ever give has to be because the dog knows what it's supposed to be doing and it's choosing not to do it. If your dog is going to be a combo dog, which is to say you've introduced it to multiple species of game, don't confuse a dog telling you what it's passionate about and what it wants to run with a dog running trash. Okay, that's kind of Pandora's box whenever you go that route. I've trained quite a few combo dogs in my time as a tree dog guy, and I've yet to have a dog that I started out on coons that when I transitioned over to squirrels, that dog became full on squirrels. From that day forward, it was much more interested in squirrels than coons. If a dog doesn't want to run what you want it to run, in the end, if it doesn't have the passion, it's just not going to make a very good dog, okay? That is not trash running. Another problem you can run into, especially if you're new in this game, is maybe you're looking at your Garmin and you don't know if your dog's running trash or not. I had that happen a lot, especially with the dog Chicory in the beginning that I talked about in part one. You know, there was a lot of times I knew she was out running something and I was pretty sure it was trash, but I didn't know. Again, that's a rough area to start burning your dog on. You want to have a solid idea. Now, as squirrel hunters, you know, we have that a lot easier than, say, coon hunters or guys that run other species. Squirrels, they don't go as far. You know, a long squirrel chase on the ground is going to be like 150 yards, right? If it goes out, if your dog is giving a chase bark or something that's going a quarter mile, you know, you see it hit 300 yards on your Garmin. 500 yards, 700 yards. I have never seen a squirrel ever go that far. Pretty good indicator that it's running trash. Your dog will also bark different. My dogs are silent on the track. When they hit a squirrel track and they're working it, they seldom open up on it until they're at the tree. But when they jump something or when they have something bayed, they bark differently. You're going to know that with your dog. The more you hunt with your dog, and to be honest, at this point, if you're at this point in your training, you should already know that with your dog. If you don't, you haven't hunted your dog enough. Okay, you know the sounds he makes when he's jumped something and he's chasing it. Again, if that chase ends pretty quickly, it's probably on target, right? It's probably on a squirrel. It's probably at a tree. Now that squirrel could go down the tree and it could restart the process again. But again, if that stays inside of 100 yards or so, you know you're probably not dealing with trash. So don't want to be sending mixed signals to our dog by lighting it up whenever it's running what we expect it to be running. So if this is your dog is not running trash. Your dog just hasn't been properly trained. And that's actually good news because now you get to go backwards and you have a chance of doing this the easy way. I covered that in video one. The link to that is in the description. But we want to walk our dog now back through the hunting process and introduce it to trash, okay? Before we get to a point where we're trying to break that dog on trash, you still need to teach your dog that it's not supposed to run trash. Before we go find game to fix this problem, we really need to understand distraction and pressure and how they work together in different environments. So if you've been doing a bunch of training with your dog around your home, it probably doesn't take much pressure from an e-collar to get the desired response from your dog. Good example of this is with Chicory, that dog I talked about in video one. When I was teaching her to recall, to come whenever called, you know, in the front yard in a subdivision, I could, if she defied me there, I could give her a little level 2 nick and she would come right to me. Well, the more distractions that you introduce into a dog's environment, the more pressure it's probably going to take to break that dog's focus. Okay. So, what that translated to is when I was having problems with her running trash, she was in eyesight and I knew what she was running. And I would give her I would tone her to come back to me, and she would ignore that. What took a level 2 to get her to come back to me in the yard went up to about a level 12, and a couple times it went beyond that to where I maxed the collar out and she still was choosing to ignore me. More to come on that later. But so keep that in mind. So now moving into the e-collar, we want to use as little force as possible. So by now you should have a very good idea of the level of force you need to use with an e-collar on your dog to correct. And we're going to start just barely above that, because remember, we're fixing defiance here. We're not gently nudging them along where they've just started to understand what they're supposed to be doing, but they're kind of flirting with the boundaries like we did whenever they were puppies and we were teaching them obedience. No, this dog's being a turd and it's time to hammer it. Okay, so we're going to step it up 1 or 2 levels above what we normally do to get a correction, because that level of stimulation is going to demand it anyways. Now we're going to go out in the woods and we're going to find trash. And for the sake of this video, we're going to say deer, but whatever your trash is, you need to go find it. And we are not going to hunt our dog until we find trash. At this point, we are only trash breaking. By hunting your dog and then going out and trash breaking, you're allowing that dog to advance a bad habit and develop further a bad habit, okay? You don't want a dog that hunts when it wants to and then runs trash whenever it wants to. And by letting it hunt till you find trash, you're actually rewarding that. So now, right now, we are trash breaking only. So we go out, we find our deer. I'm going to unclip the lead. I'm going to get downwind of that deer. Again, we're still going to try to make it as easy for the dog to understand this as possible. Even though we're dealing with defiance, we're still going to try to set our dog up for success. So I'm going to unclip the dog. I'm going to make sure he's going to be approaching from a direction that he'll get a nose full of the deer. And the moment my dog's focus goes to that deer, I'm hammering my dog on continuous. And if that works, we'll see. If the deers run off, we need to go leash our dog. We need to go find another deer. We need to let the dog go, and we need to watch it. And if he obviously catches the scent of that deer and then chooses to keep going, good dog, good dog. We're watching for that moment. We want this to take place within sight of us, and we really want to praise that dog up. Hey, you did the right thing there by not going after that deer. And then we want to just keep repeating this process. We want to keep go find another deer. And if you're on like round 2 and they decide to go after that deer, we are stepping the pressure way up from what we were, and we are hammering that dog again. And we're going to keep doing this till we get the point across, like, listen, last time I told you no with some, that didn't work. This time I'm going to tell you no with some, obviously it's not really fists. We're using our e-collar here. And we're going to step that all the way up until that dog wants nothing to do with that deer anymore. We're going to do that every single time it comes into contact with that deer or that trash, whatever it is. Which this brings me back around to Chicory, like I was talking about in the first video. We had a bad problem with deer. It got to the point that I would cut her out. She would go find them. She would quickly run them out of range of my Garmin. And I'm stuck sitting there till my dog decides to come back to me. And bad things go through your head when you're doing that. You got limited time after work, whatever. You don't get to hunt. You want to be out there hunting game. And my dog wasn't doing it. My dog was running trash. And so this went so long that one night I dropped her off on the bank. It was in September, and I was hunting out on core engineering land around some lakes. There's lots of persimmon trees there. In September, the coons are hitting those persimmon trees pretty hard. And I was going out at night on the boat, and I was shining the banks. I'd find a coon, I'd drop her off, and I was excited about it. I liked doing that. And I had gone through all this effort of I'm getting off after work. I drive with my boat. I put money in my boat for gas. I launched my boat. I boat across the lake. This is a huge lake I'm doing this on. It was probably a 30-minute ride up to where I was doing this, And then I'm there to do what I want to do, and my dog's running trash. Again, I have no one to blame but me, as I talked about in the first video. But I reached my breaking point that night with that dog. I got so fed up. I found some coons. I dropped her off. She hit a deer. She ran that deer out of range of my Garmin. I couldn't hardly hear anymore. It's real hilly around here. I get about a mile before I lose my dog with that Garmin Alpha. And I just had to sit there on my boat until my dog decided to come back to me. And at that night, I had had enough. I was like, this ends right now. Honestly, my mind was this dog's either gonna unalive or it's gonna quit running deer tonight. And so when the dog did come back, I didn't yell at the dog. I didn't scream at the dog. Again, dogs are living in the moment, right? And even though they know they were off running trash and they're not supposed to, you yelling at your dog for something it gave up on 5 or 6 minutes ago is not going to do that situation any good at all. Okay, so I loaded that dog up. I went back out on the boat and I started shining the banks to find deer. And I found a deer on this long, skinny point. The wind was blowing right out to us. It was perfect. I cut her out on the bank about 100 yards from that deer. I had real good visibility. I turned that Garmin all the way up. And the moment she hit that deer's scent, the moment her head started to go to it, I hit continuous on that Garmin. And it just absolutely locked her up, and she just hunkered right down. She couldn't move, and she was just getting zapped. And I did that like 3 times. As soon as it ended, I would just hit continuous again and I would hold it. And I sat there and I fried her good with that e-collar for 4 or 5 times on max. And at that point, I had nothing to lose. Yeah, I was angry, and we shouldn't correct our dog whenever we're mad, but we're human, guys. And this is the real world, right? I'm not gonna talk about fluff and stuff to make it sound good for the Karens or the antis. That dog was either dying that night or it was gonna quit running deer in my mind. That's how fed up I was with this. And you know, after the last time she got up with her tail between her legs, she came right back to me. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm done right now. I don't want this to go on any further. I went home. I took her out the next night and I found deer again. And I cut her out and I saw her hit the scent of that deer and she wanted nothing to do with that deer and she kept going. And from that moment until I gave her away about 6 months later, she never ran deer again in her life. And the guy I gave her to, I asked him, you know, he had her for about a year before she got hurt by a hog. And he said that dog will never run deer. So it worked. And that's how I finally broke that dog on deer. Not every dog is chicory. Patch, my Finnish Mullins Feist right now, I did him the right way, like I talked about in video 1. I properly walked him through the hunt training. I properly introduced him to trash, and it never took more than a little nick to get him off an armadillo. And that dog was quickly on to, I'm fired up about squirrels. That's all I want to do. And I don't really have problems with him with trash. Dogs are not robots, guys. Even my dogs that don't run trash will once in a blue moon jump a deer within 5 yards of them, and they may run them for 15 or 20 yards. And if they're broke from trash and they do the occasional, hey, I'm not a machine, you know, let them know they're not supposed to do it. You know, hey, no, but it's nothing to freak out over. But now that said, not every dog breaks from trash when you go through this. Spruce, that treeing Tennessee brindle that I loved and I wanted to work out so bad, he was going to run trash if he wanted to run trash. And whenever you get to that point, you have a decision to make. Me, that dog was bought as a pure hunting dog. So at that point, along with him not really sticking to trees, there's a few other reasons I got rid of him. That dog had to go. So I ended up giving him away to a farm where they wanted a dog to chase squirrels and deer off their crops. So that, like, he's the happiest dog in the world now, and I was free to move on to another hunting dog. But to me, life is too short to tolerate a dog that's going to run trash. You don't have a lot of time, and to be honest, there's just too many dogs out there that aren't going to do it for you to put up with it. I suggest if it's a hunting dog, give it away to somebody that wants a pet and start over with a new dog. If you got a dog that you have properly trained, you've properly walked through the trash breaking cycle, it's decided to run trash anyways, so you give it an honest effort to stop it from running trash, and it still wants to run trash, good riddance, buddy. Next. Now, that said, if I got a dog like Garrett, who he's fine, he's a good hunting dog, I like him just now. I wouldn't call him finished, but if he never got any better than he is right now, I'm happy turning him out in the woods. Garrett is a family pet. Garrett's my youngest son's childhood dog, and it would break his heart. He'd probably never talk to me again if I got rid of Garrett. So like it or not, Garrett's part of this family. In that situation, if I was unable to break Garrett on trash, which we still got a little armadillo work to do here, Garrett would at that point just be a family dog and he wouldn't hunt anymore, because I just don't want the headache of a dog that's going to do what it wants sometimes. It's a waste of your time and money, and you don't have a lot of it. So I'd like to hear some of y'all's stories on what you're dealing with running trash. It's not fun. It gives you headaches. Drop it in the comments. If you found this useful, like it, subscribe, let me know. I got a lot more content like this coming.